Welcome to the Voice of Bold Business Radio, the show about ways to stay competitive in a changing market, break through business plateaus, and respond to the changing expectations of today's customers. Your host, Jess Dewell, is a rapid growth entrepreneur, consultant, and business advocate with a 20-year track record of business excellence. She candidly discusses how to achieve your growth strategy and realize your company's unfulfilled potential. Now, here's Jess.
Welcome to the Voice of Bold Business Radio. I am Jess Dewell, your host. Having been in entrepreneurial positions for over 20 years, having run the Red Direction team for 15 of those over 20 years, we're all about how do we think on our feet? How do we ask the right questions to have the right conversation at the right time and make sure that the people, the places, the way that we can get impact gets impact. And I'm super excited today because this is program 221. This is growth strategy and achievement. Today, our special guest is Chuck Blakeman. And before I introduce him to you, I just want to take a minute and say happy Tuesday. Welcome to the Voice of Bold Business Radio. And don't forget, use hashtag VBBRadio because active leaders, we're defining it as we go. Through each experience we have and sharing it with each other matters. So let's keep this conversation going during the live show today, as well as post-show. Chuck Blakeman is the founder and chief transformation officer of the Crankset Group. He's a serial entrepreneur. He's an internationally acclaimed speaker. He writes weekly for Inc. magazine. He is a best-selling author. He's also world-renowned at business as a business advisor because you know what? He's built 12 businesses in 8 industries on 4 continents. Now, I have a really awesome track record, but I have to tell you, Chuck is what I aspire to by the time I am done with my career. It's really good to have you here today, Chuck. How are you?
Yes, it's great to be with you. And yeah, some of that stuff, I get nervous when I hear that stuff because it sounds like an obituary.
Well, you know what? We can't take ourselves too seriously ever, can we?
Yeah, resumes are just obituaries. They tell what people used to do, and they're usually a little bit fluff. But no,
yes, exactly. And here's the thing, though. Even though it's all the stuff that's in the past, it makes us who we are right now and brings us that impact that we can have today. So if we were to flip it around and look at the other side, it's almost like we're planting tomorrow's seeds with everything that we do.
And we talk about that all the time. Use today to build tomorrow. That's really the option.
Thinking about how we do what we do in business, regardless of the role that we're in, we have this responsibility not only to ourselves to feel fulfilled and to show up, but to the role that we've accepted and agreed to, and to the team, the bigger team, the company that we're a part of. And with that, we tend to get stuck in ruts, don't we?
Yeah, it's very easy to get stuck in ruts. I talk about, Google had me out last year to talk about how they could get their innovation mojo back. And I help them understand that there's 3 influences in the way they make decisions. One is complexity. The world is complex and getting more complex. And the second one is change. Things are changing and getting more complex. And the third one is human need for certainty. And that one is the one we tend to make all of our decisions. We solve for certainty when we should be solving for complexity and change. That's at the root of most business problems. And that's the rut. You know, Seth Godin wrote a great little book 10 years ago or 8 years ago, something like that, called The Dip. And the dip basically said, it's like the Einstein theory of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. And he challenged the idea that quitters never win and winners never quit. His response was, no, winners quit all the time. It's quitters that have a problem quitting. They don't quit often enough. And then when they quit the whole darn thing. So it's like, I tried real estate, and instead of trying different things in real estate, I just keep banging my head against the wall doing the same thing that doesn't work. And then I quit real estate and say, well, real estate doesn't work. So that's the rut mentality. We all have it. And it's just every problem I have in life is related to one simple thing. I make decisions based on the short term versus the long term. If I'm making decisions based on the long term, where do you think I'll be next year? If I'm making decisions based on the short term, where do I think think I'll be next year. It's that rut. You got it.
Short term and long term. That's one of the things when the companies that I go into, the companies that call me up and say, we're stuck. Well, they're trying to solve for the long term and don't know how to do right now. And they forget about or the other way around. We're only interested in this short term, and they don't recognize that they may be creating a path that they don't want to be in, as short as a year, but as many as 5 or 7 years down the road, even if that means ending.
Yeah, it really does. We either get caught in one or the other. Most companies, I think you would agree, are caught in the second one, where they're trying to make money today and not figuring out where is it taking me. They're not tying today to what's happening tomorrow, and that's a challenge.
It is a challenge, and people say they want to focus. I'm thinking about the influences that you were talking about: the change, the complexity, and the solving for certainty. And when we quit too soon, when we're only looking in one direction and we forget about the other pieces, we think we're focused. And so how do you help people recognize that even when they think they're focused, there's a big chance that they're not, as an individual or as an organizational team?
Great question. We talk about the 4 building blocks of a business. I fell into these as I fall into everything. I don't sit in an ivory tower and think stuff up. Just as I worked in my own 12 businesses and as I worked with other business owners, I found that the 4th building block was a need for what we call outside eyes, which is what you provide for companies so well, and others. Outside eyes. It's like, I got no dog in the hunt here, so I have a different view of what's going on, and I can look at this without all the politics and all the judgment, all the tradition and all the history and all the nonsense that goes with the emotion. It's my baby. And so that to me is one of the major ways that we help people identify these things, is get somebody who has no dog in the hunt, whether it's a friend or someone who's done this as a living. I'm not a career consultant. Like you said, I built 12 businesses in 8 industries on 4 continents. I'm an entrepreneur who now expends or invests all his time helping other people do that stuff. But because of all that history, I'm pretty good, and I bet you are too. I walk in and say, "Oh, I've seen this before."
Yes.
And you haven't, and you don't even know it exists. So I'm saying that inside myself. Oh, I've seen this before, but you don't even know you have this. You've got the measles. You don't know what they look like.
Right.
It's a great example. It's like going to a doctor. Hey, doc, I don't know what's wrong with me. Well, I've seen this 1,000 times. So outside eyes, and don't be afraid to get. I say this, Jess, and I'm a freaking hypocrite, because for the first 6 businesses, I was I'm a recovering John Wayne rugged individualist. I printed a business card and I got this. How's business? Business is great. I'm dying inside. I'm waking up in cold sweats, but no, business is great. I'm not taking any outside eyes. And it took me a long time to figure out that I knew a lot less than I thought I did. So, if you're young out there and you're learning this for the first time, get over it faster than I did, and get outside eyes.
That's really interesting, because everybody says, oh, well, my 3rd attempt, my 5th attempt, my first company's failed. Oh, I have way more failures than I have successes in business. I have all of those things. And you're right. I was able to avoid them or change the outcome. The successes are proof of that. Exactly what you're saying. Somebody else was looking at this with my best interest in mind of, she really wants to do this, with the business's best interest in mind. Well, this is what she and her team are trying to do. And then now what? How are those fitting together? What is that path that can be seen outside? It's almost like that flight. Is it like a flight plan? I mean, that's what's coming to mind right now.
Yeah, that's a great example of it. Yeah, and then because you have a flight plan, clearly where you want to end up, then you're constantly checking yourself across the path. We call that the 2.1 planning strategy. Most of business is built on a 3.0 planning strategy. Where am I? Where do I want to end up? And then 3 is, how do I get all the way from 1 to 2? And that's voodoo and fortune telling. That's what we call a business plan. And they don't make sense. You cannot dictate where you are now, where you want to be 3 years from now, and actually put together a plan on how you're going to get there 3 years from now. You don't get number 3. That's what we call the giant how. What you get is 2.1. Where am I? That's 1. Where do you want to end up? That's 2. And then 2.1. What do I do in the next month to get to 2? What do I do now in the next 2 weeks to a month to get all the way to 3 years from now? And then I do that, and then I got a new one. Okay, I'm a month out. Do I like where I'm at? Where do I want to end up? Now what do I do for another month? We call that 1,000 little hows. And that's how you do a flight plan. You figure out, if you're a sailor, you actually start by figuring out where do you want to end up. I don't know if you do this in flying, but you start where's Bermuda? If I want to go to Bermuda, the first thing I do is find Bermuda, which makes a lot of sense. And then you work your way backwards. If it's 800 miles or whatever, it's going to take me 4 days. And what would be day 4? Coming back from Bermuda, and then day 3, and then day 2, and day 1. And then you figure out how to do that backwards. But then you're taking soundings, or you're taking measurements the whole way out. One of my unpublished books yet is called Bad Plans Carried Out Violently. How real
Seriously?
Oh yeah, it's how, and the subtitle is How Real Leaders Lead and Succeed in the Real World. Let's get real here. Nobody has a good plan. Bill Hewlett stopped getting invited to MBA courses because he said, we didn't have a business plan. We made this up as we went along. But then he did know something. He did say, I knew what it looked like when we were done. Bill Watson, who built IBM, said the very same thing. I didn't know how to get there, but I knew exactly where we wanted to end up. That's strategic planning. Business planning is, how do I get all the way from 1 to 2? Strategic planning is, what do I do over the next month to get to 2? And then what do I do again to get to 2? So I'm always thinking about how to use the present to build tomorrow. But it's stuff I can actually grab and take hold of. So every plan is a bad plan. And I got that from this World War I dude. He was a German general who said after the war, they actually planned how to invade Europe right down to resupplying shoelaces to the front line. After the war, one of the generals said, no battle plan survives its first encounter with the enemy. That's a bad plan. So there are no good plans, no matter how good it is. Once you put it in play, I think it was one of the famous boxers said, you have a really great plan until you get hit. Mm-hmm. And then you have to start reacting.
That's exactly right. So, and we're big proponents of this. And I am so glad to hear you say that. People don't put time into a plan. Well, if I'm going to put time into a plan that I know will be obsolete as soon as I start, I still know where I was going to end, because that doesn't change. And anywhere in between, I have done the research, I have done the work, I have done the thinking, I have gathered the people, so that as soon as I hit that first bump, as soon as those things change, we get to work through it. We're not recoiling, we're not readjusting. We have all the right pieces, and we get to use them differently in a much different way. And so I have this phrase that I use called act to plans. And so that's what it's all about. How do you act? How do you integrate? How do you act? How do you integrate? And whether you start from a plan so you're prepared, or you just jump and fly by the seat of your pants, depending on your work style, you're still acting and incorporating it to decide what is that next action to take with whatever thought processes and resources that have been gathered and somewhat allocated to be able to be adaptable and flexible as you go forward.
So yeah, I totally agree. There's 3 ways to take a boat out of a harbor where no one has ever been out of the harbor. There's the cognitive way, the emotional way, and the intuitive way. The emotional way is, well, there's the entrance, and let's just head toward that and hope for the best. It's a sunny day, and let's just go as fast as we can toward the entrance. You will find one sandbar, the one you crash on. Then there's the cognitive approach. Hey, there's sandbars out there, so let's sit on the dock and postulate and theorize and check the wind and the currents and draw a map, and we'll sit on this dock for weeks and we'll never find a sandbar, and we'll never move because we're too afraid we might do this wrong, and we're perfecting a plan that will never come to fruition. The right way to do it is the way Einstein talked about. Einstein said that intuition is the highest form of human intelligence, and it combines the emotional, the mental, and the physical. Think, feel, do becomes the intuitive, and the intuitive response is, okay, there are sandbars out there. There's danger out there. So it'd be stupid just to race 40 knots ahead straight at the entrance. let's immediately leave the dock. Let's get whatever little information we can about the currents and the wind, and let's get out there. And as soon as we're moving, take soundings. So you're using the rational, that's the taking of the soundings. And if the water is getting shallower, then fear sets in. That's the emotion, which is healthy. And you say, holy crap, if we keep going this direction, we're going to run into a sandbar. Now what do? I don't know. I really don't know. We'll use the intuitive and go left or right. And if you were wrong, the soundings will tell you. So you use all three, think, feel, do, and you get out of the harbor without ever hitting a sandbar. But you're moving and you get it going. So that's, to me, good planning. People think I'm against planning. Not at all. We're manic about planning. But it's planning in the real world. The difference would be, how do I live 9 miles from the State House in Denver. 2 ways to get to the State House. Have somebody at every corner of every intersection to the State House take a picture all at once, and then send me those pictures, and I actually try to get to the State House based on those pictures. That's called a business plan. That's really stupid, because we all know the lights are going to change, a dog's going to run across, a hurricane, a tornado. Who knows? The best way to do it is figure out, where am I? Where's the State House? Okay, where's the first road I should take? Okay, that worked. Now what should I do? Whoa, there's a red light there. Oh, there's an accident there. It's never a straight line. So, but it's planning the entire time. You're using the cognitive, the emotional, and the intuitive the whole time.
And it's a level up. It's high level thinking along the way versus here's the plan, go do it. Like,
and we don't like that.
Versus.
Yeah, we again, back to the human need for certainty. Just give me a plan and let me run it out. I'm sorry, life doesn't work that way.
Yeah. Sometimes it starts when you brush your teeth.
That's right.
I mean, hello. If you really look at your mornings, and people who love control, I have to admit your mornings probably look way different than mine. But even though I have a cadence of what I would like to do every morning and an intention, there are days none of it happens. And I can still show up, and you'll still see me this way, and you'll still see me present and in the moment, because I recognize there's other stuff that needed to show up. And if I let it get in the way, what do? I'm holding myself and everybody else around me back in that day. Isn't that true?
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, hello. So it's all good.
Yeah.
What do you do? How do you show up? So we're talking about presence. And this is something, this concept of thinking and presence and this willingness to go, yeah, here's what it looks like when we get there. Yeah, we know where we're going. But this need for certainty means that, and I'm going to call them natural leaders at the moment, people who are willing to make decisions end up being the leaders, these perceived natural leaders. Now, there's some mines that we could find ourselves in. There's those sandbars. You were talking about sandbars that we're going to just end up crashing into when that happens. So how do we work with that? How do we take the people that want initiative and are willing to do this and go forward, and other people are like, good, certain, somebody's making that decision, I will follow, versus somebody who's like, yep, I know exactly where I'm going, and we're figuring it out as we go along and getting people to follow that person. I think there's a difference in that.
Well, those two questions encompass my first 2 books. So the first book was Making Money is Killing Your Business. And that was basically, how do we get other people how do we get off the treadmill as a business leader or as a business owner? And then the second book is about how do we get everybody else engaged to the point where they're making decisions and making this thing run. And we have 100% engagement. So they're great questions. The first one is based on my mindset to begin with. Well, first of all, it's based on what I want out of my business. What's my big why? And that motivates me to have the right mindset. But the right mindset is built around what we call the business owner's game. And that's straight out of my first book. The business owner's game has one objective. How do I make more money in less time? The industrial age taught us the only way to make more money is to spend more time at work. You run out of 168 hours. That doesn't work. Warren Buffett does not suffer from this disease. Neither does Richard Branson or lots of others. They figure out how to make more money in less time. So how do I do that? There's 2 questions. If you memorize these questions, if your listeners memorize these questions, it will change their lives. It changed mine. They don't need to read any more books. Well, that's not true. But
take a pause for a minute and work with this for a while. I hear you.
Let's work with this for a bit. 2 questions. So the objective is make more money in less time. The questions are simple. Question number 1. For what I'm doing right now, anything I'm doing, writing, stapling, driving, doing a proposal, talking to a customer, inventing something, whatever I'm doing, question number 1, is what I'm doing right now the highest and best use of my time and my talents. And there's multiple ways we know that. It energizes me. Nobody else, excuse me, got a little frog in my throat, exercising too much. And it energizes me. Nobody else is as, I don't feel anybody else could do this as well as I could do it. There's lots of reasons why I could do it. But if I'm worth $2 or $3 or $4 or $500 an hour and I'm doing something that's worth $20 an hour, that's another indication. So when you first start playing this game, 90% of your answer is going to be, nope, this is not the highest and best use of my time. Okay, then question number 2. Question number 2 is, if this is not the highest and best use of my time, then how do I do this for the last time? And if you're manic about getting the answer to how do I do it for the last time, you'll come up with a process, a person, a machine. Just stop doing it. It's not relevant. There's multiple ways to figure out how to get yourself doing things that are the highest and best use of your time. But the second book is all about this idea of distributed decision making and getting people engaged in the world around them. The book I'm writing down right now is a follow-up on that. It's the how-to book. It's called Rehumanizing the Workplace by Giving Everybody Their Brain Back. And we do that by distributing the decision making. But first I have to believe other people are smart and motivated, and that's hard. So there's a lot of head trash there. So that's the core practice. You ask yourself, Jess, what makes us adult? What makes us human is creativity and awareness and that kind of stuff. But what makes us adult? I've thought a lot about this and studied it. The core thing that makes us adult more than anything else is the ability and the responsibility to make decisions. We don't allow 7-year-olds to make certain decisions because they're not adults. But when I'm 21, I can put the ice cream in my freezer and eat it whenever I want, which is both a joy and a problem. And that's adulthood. What do we do to people at work? We take their ability to make decisions away. There it is. In a nutshell, that is the core issue in all of business, is that as soon as I cross the threshold at work, somehow I've lost my brain. I can buy a house, I can get married, I can decide career paths, I can do all sorts of incredible decision making, but I'm dumb as a rock when I get to work because somebody above me thinks I don't have a brain. And people are selling engagement, and I don't believe in engagement. Engagement is not a process, it's a result.
Yes.
If you allow and require decisions to be made locally by distributed decision-making teams, you will have 100% engagement. And I could go off, and if we have time, we can go off for a few minutes on companies with 2.5 to 75,000 people that have no managers in the whole place. Nobody works for anybody, and the place works flawlessly because everybody has their brain back. Take a breath.
There's so many things. It wants to come out my nose and my mouth and my ears and my eyes all at the same time, Chuck. There's that much in there. And we're going to pause because I want to stay on this train of thought. We're going to come back to it. We have a couple of audience questions. Hashtag VBB Radio. This is a question from Mark. Chuck, I agree with more money for less time, but I'm conflicted. I'm not in a position to make that transition, especially in this economy.
Great question.
I'm stuck.
Yeah, and that's in my first book as well, Making Money's Killing Your Business. We talk about the difference between an income producer and a business owner. Most of us start out as income producers. I'm making the chairs. But at some point, we have to get other people making the chairs, and we think we've made the transition. We really haven't, because if I leave for a week or two, people stop making chairs. So I'm still responsible for making the chairs, and I can't leave. It's when you can be gone on every Friday or a couple days a week or the last week of the month, and the business regularly makes money when you are not there. You can call yourself a business owner. So I was ruthless and have been in all 12 of my businesses. I'm still an income producer. I'm still an income producer until someone else has not just the task, but the responsibility to make a great chair. That's when I become a business owner. I don't have to be there all the time. I can still be there to cast vision, give guidance, leadership, but I'm not necessary in the day-to-day. And to that person's point, that is a tough transition to make. We call that the big mindset shift. There's 7 stages to building a business. That's in the first book as well. And that's stage 4 to stage 5. Stage 4 is, hey, I'm profitable. Woohoo! The American dream. And then you realize, oh, crap, I don't have any time. The American dream. Yeah, that's not. So stage 5 is where you begin to figure out how to get your business to produce both time and money. And to this person's point, this is a tipping point. This is a decision we have to make, and it requires a different view of the world and some creative thinking. So get some outside eyes, but here's one thought on this. Is as an income producer, a lot of times we're thinking expense. It took me a lot of money to get to this point, and I don't see how I could get to the next point without hiring a salesperson or a chair maker. And if I do that, that's coming right off my dinner plate. I don't have the money to do this. And so it becomes the conversation, I can't afford to do this. And I would challenge you to think, to maybe ask this, make this statement, I can't afford not to do this. I met a realtor who 30 years ago went to Boise, Idaho, and said, I'm going to be the #1 in Boise and across the whole West. And she went there and started spending $5,000 a month on very savvy marketing. You can waste it. So she knew what she was doing. And all the realtors were saying, I can't afford to do that. She was saying, I can't afford not to. For the last 10 years, she's been one of the top 5 Keller Williams franchises in America, because she invested in that tipping point. So people who get to stage 4, I call it the most dangerous stage in business, because I finally have profit. I have something to protect, and by God, I'm going to. Well, sorry to burst your bubble, but in order to get to stage 5, where you're a business owner and this thing is producing time and money, then you're going to have to probably take something off your plate. I was making $125,000 in one of my businesses, and when I decided I wanted to be a business owner, I ended up making $60 for 2 or 3 more years. But then I made $150 without doing hardly anything in production. So, if you want to get to the next level, you have to see your future clearly.
Taking a quick break, we'll be right back after this.
You're listening to the voice of Bold Business Radio. In every program, we share stories, tips, and concepts that benefit short-term goals and increase confidence in long-term positioning. For additional perspectives on your growth strategy, Jess Dewell is your business advisor and consultant. Go to voiceofboldbusiness.com and click the Find Out More button to get started. Now, back to Jess.
You are listening to program 221, Growth and Achievement. Now, if you haven't already gone to Amazon or to the Crankset Group's website and purchased these books, we're going to make sure that they are in the show notes at the end of this program. In addition to that, Chuck Blakeman, founder, chief transformational officer of the Crankset Group, is here with us today, and he's already unloaded everything. If you were just thinking you were going to be able to drink your coffee or take a walk and commute to this today, yeah, you're probably going to be pausing and rewinding and listening to this a couple of different times in a couple of different ways. Because depending on what you're grappling with, depending on what you're trying to do, it could have, the first half of the show could serve you right now. Also, where we're going in the second half, you'll notice and remember right before we took our break, we started talking about brain power. We started talking about giving people their brain back, understanding what the role of a mentor, what the role of a leader actually is, and allowing people to manage their own selves. Isn't that what it's all about, Chuck?
Well, that's the idea of, people want to be adults. And there's a lot of history on that. I had to study this stuff. I was doing it in my own businesses, again, just intuitively. I'm left-handed, right-brained, ADHD, dyslexic. So I just did stuff. I went to music school. I didn't go to business school. And then I started helping other people. I had to look back and say, yikes, maybe I better look and make sure what I'm teaching people is actually valid stuff. And I looked back at it and looked throughout history. Here's an incredible statistic that'll wake us up when it comes to this idea of people being self-managed. Somewhere between 80 and 90% of all free people throughout the history of the world owned their own business until we invented factories. And now it's 15%. It has absolutely flipped. And people who, back then, if you didn't own your own business, people thought, well, why don't you own your business? That's weird. Now when you own your business, people look at you and say, why do you own your own business? That's weird. But this is what's weird. We're still in a factory system mindset. The point of that is, it's not that you need to own your own business. The point is, we love being in control of our destinies. And making decisions is an adult thing. And so that is the magic, distributed decision-making through distributed DDM teams, not by yourself, not as Lone Rangers. It's not every man for himself or every woman for himself, but it's us working together, making decisions locally that have to be carried out locally. The principle is simple, Jess. Input, the more input I have in a decision, the more ownership I have in the decision. So here's the mantra: input equals ownership. Well, let's apply that to fill in the blank. Google, oh my goodness. I walked into Google and I was on my heels for the whole time I was there. It was like walking into a factory from 1902. They're one of the most regressive, top-down factory system hierarchies I've ever been in my life. Now, everybody mistakes culture for Fridays I get to do whatever I want. We can wear blue jeans, free lunches, work from home. These are perks. This is not culture. Culture is, do I get to make decisions or not make decisions? And I had director after director telling me, well, I made this decision for 2,000 people. I even flipped these guys' careers because I thought it would be better for them. And I'm confused as to why they're not on board with it. Well, did you ask them?
You know, and Google is a technology company. I will tell you, the hardest people to find as a small business owner myself and working with small businesses, first is recognizing every business is a technology business. But secondly, most small businesses, unless they're technology or software or something like that, they don't need technology people or developers all of the time. And the way that they teach, the way that they have indoctrinated, here's how you code, here's how you create. And everybody, it's like a Lego set. Everybody's a particular Lego and you know where you fit and you may move around, but now I don't want that as a small business owner. I want somebody who can be 10 Legos at a time. I want somebody who can come in and actually help me think on the business side and be able to translate it to be in the technological side.
Somebody who can invent the next Lego.
I know, right?
Yeah.
I'm telling you, and this is a big thing that most small businesses face. And when you get into bigger businesses, what do we have? We have sandboxes and we have silos.
Yeah. Hey, absolutely. So let's put some meat in the bones, because I work largely with small business owners. There's a dentist we worked with, and this dentist decided he wanted to do sleep apnea therapy, which is big in dentistry these days. And he had learned how to do distributive decision making. So the first thing he did was went to his team of 20 people in the practice and said, "Hey, we're thinking about this idea of sleep apnea and adding that to our bag of tricks. Anybody here interested in that, would like to take that initiative and run with it?" 22 hygienists, front desk people, assistants, nobody who had ever done anything with sleep apnea. One person, sure enough, he knew who was going to raise their hand. He said, "I had an inkling this person would, because she snores like nobody's business." And and she laughs about it. And she said, "Hey, I'm interested in this stuff." "Great, go learn about it." And then he said, "Okay, where do you think you could learn about this?" "Well, I don't know." And they worked that out. And then she said, "I think I need some training." "Well, where do you think you should get some training?" "Well, I don't know." "Well, why don't you go look at that and come back with 3 places you think you could train?" And then she came back with 3 places. "Well, which one would you pick?" "Well, this one." "Well, they're going to go do that." "What do you think we should do next?" "Well, we should put together a business plan." "Well, why don't you put together a strategic plan?" "Why don't you put together?" And you can see where I'm going with this. He said, "I never made a decision. And to this day, I have never touched anything related to sleep apnea, and it raised our revenues by 40%. Now that's a dramatic example of distributed decision making, and imagine how engaged that person is. And yes, she gets paid more these days. She's in charge of the sleep apnea program, so she built herself a path. That's what we're talking about here. We do this with our admins. What can you do next to create something, create more money, create responsibility for yourself, take on more responsibility, add value, take away expenses. There's so many ways that we can do this, but we've got to get people totally engaged. And the way we do that is not by running an engagement program or sticking stupid motivational sayings on the walls. It's by actually giving them their brains back and saying, "What do you think we should do?" Duh.
Right. And recognizing that we're a little bit behind. And as progressive and as fast as technology moves, it makes sense everybody's their own Lego. I'm going to go back to that and say, I get why that's there. It's easy to add Legos and make something bigger. At the same point in time, when we do that, we accidentally, maybe every single time, diminish people and squish them and allow them to just have this opportunity to deflate. And we don't recognize they're deflated until they're basically gone or disengaged, and then it's too late. So what I hear you saying is, provided we have the courage to think differently and give somebody the opportunity to step up, we will be surprised.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's one of these things where Douglas McGregor did a study in 1960, published a book called The Human Side of Enterprise. This is not new stuff, Jess.
Right.
And in 1960, he postulated Theory X, coming off of Frederick Winslow Taylor's paper in 1911, that people are stupid and lazy. And he said, that's Theory X. People are stupid and lazy. And then he postulated, well, let's try Theory Y. People are smart and motivated. And then he went and found companies within a single industry. Here's 4 companies that think people are stupid and lazy. Here's 4 companies that think people are smart and motivated. And he studied those companies. Gee, what a surprise. In all those companies and all those different industries, it was all a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you believed people were stupid and lazy, then you didn't allow or require localized decision-making. You had them add one Lego to the thing. You gave them tasks, not responsibilities, and they ended up stupid and lazy. In the other companies, they all end up smart and motivated. We make people stupid and lazy, or we allow them to be their smart and motivated selves. We get to choose.
And that's where the innovation comes in that choice. Are we an innovative company or are we not? By how we allow people to step up.
Yeah, and this is cultural innovation. This is a thing that's really untapped territory for us. We think of innovation as being what's the next great widget. But here's what 125 years worth of research on productivity says. If you're nice to people and you treat them like an adult, you make more money. And so what do we're innovating in every way, but trying to figure out, how do we bring humanity back into work? How do we rehumanize the workplace by giving everybody their brain back? That's that soft stuff. I'm too busy in production. Let's hand it off to this crazy thing called HR so that I can get involved in the real business. I love what's the company that makes kidney transplant stuff, it'll come to me, but 65,000 people. And their perspective on this is that everybody there has a brain and everybody is in community together. This is just one big village.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to pop this one in here. This is a question from Jeff live. He's saying, sometimes a cigar is just a cigar. Isn't it true that most garden variety businesses are going to stick with and be fine with the status quo, and they find your model risky?
Sure. Yeah. It's one of the reasons we haven't seen this change faster. Mary Parker Follett was talking about this stuff in 1929. You don't need managers. You don't need bosses. This is not new. Here's the thing. The data is all on the side of doing things differently. We call this the factory system. The top-down hierarchy with people at the top telling people at the bottom what to do. It's a pyramid scheme. Pyramid schemes are designed to benefit the people at the top, to use the people at the bottom to do that. And that's what the factory system is. And it works to some degree. The people at the top are doing just fine. So why change? Well, here's why you would change. Because all the data shows that when companies do change, the people at the top make more money. The company grows faster, higher productivity, higher profits. It's staggering stuff. John Cotter did a 10-year study on companies that showed things like profitability when they switched from being production-oriented to people-oriented. Profitability went up on average 756% over 10 years for those companies, and it stayed the same for the other ones. So yeah, if you're making money, just keep doing what you're doing. But all I can tell you is you would make if you are a hardcore, if that's your thing, then you could make more money by giving people their brains back, and you'd have more stability and more freedom. It's the biggest draw for the small business owner here really is the freedom. And again, in that first book, we talk about the mature business where you can come and go, even with 4 people. You can build a business that makes money when you are not there, but you have to incorporate this idea that people are smart and motivated, distributed decision-making, the business owner's game, things like that. And that to me is the appeal for most small business owners, because I can think of one woman who works 6 days a week here in my town, takes home well over $1 million a year. And I could call her on Saturday afternoon, she's going to be in the office. She's an income producer. And she is a hostage to her business. Most people, once they've done that for 3, 4, 5, 6, or 8 years, they finally realize money by itself is not enough. Let's get you time and money. And so we have 3 to 5 clubs all over the world where we teach small business owners with under 20, with 1 to 20 people, how to get off the treadmill and actually build a business that makes more money in less time. That becomes attractive.
I'm going to just put in a couple of other stats. 1 in 100 businesses will make it to 10 years. When we don't allow people to use their own brains, when we don't let people have a say, we're limited to what we know and what we don't know. And that's a control issue. And so you're doomed to end quicker, faster, when you are closed, when you don't want any other extra input, when you don't want that second set of eyes, when you choose not to use the emotional, the cognitive, as well as the physical space around you. And that includes the people that come into that space. And it's going to be very interesting to see, because even companies that are on the S&P 500, Fortune 500 companies, Fortune 1000 companies, they are staying publicly traded an average of 10 or more years less than they did when I graduated from high school, just in 1996. I mean, just in my lifetime, we are seeing a drastic decline in this. And I think there's something to be said for what's going on behind the scenes and some of these other trends that we're talking about. So, if all you want to do is make money and then you want to take a break, and you want to make money and you want to take a break, more power to you. That's your workflow. Have at it. But does not a successful serialpreneur does that make, in my opinion? Does also not make an effective leader.
It sounds tiring. Because we all know what it takes. We all know what it takes to start a business. I call it Fred Flintstoning.
Yeah.
You're just pedaling like crazy and nothing's happening to begin with. And you finally you can pull your feet in at some point. But every time you start a business, it's the inertia to get that started. Do you really want to do this over and over? I work with all kinds of small business owners who build a business. I ask them, what are you building this for? And they said, well, so that I can sell it. Well, what do you mean? See, I'm going to do this for 30 years and then I'm going to sell it to some fool who'll do it for another 30 years. And I said, well, here's another option. Why are you? I ask him, why are you selling the business? Why would you do that? And he says, because it's an albatross around my neck. I make a buttload of money and I'm miserable. So the only way to get out from under this is to sell it and either take a break or take a permanent break and retire. I said, here's another way to think about this. What if you used your business to build your ideal lifestyle? What if you built a business that served you, that you owned rather than a business that owned you? What if you built a business instead of a job? So I give him my scenario. My first 6 businesses, every time I built a business, the faster it ran, the faster I ran. I was just on the treadmill. And then it was actually the 6th business where I said, I don't know how I'm going to do this, but I'm going to get off the treadmill. I'm going to build a business that makes more money in less time. I had no clue how to do it. I just knew exactly what I wanted when I was done. And in my 6th business, I achieved it. And today, we've got 2 businesses running. I do not go into the office on Mondays or Fridays or the entire last week of the month. So I work 3 days a week, 3 weeks of the month. And then I take a month in the summers or over Christmas off. So 2 days a week a month, and a month a year. I get up in the morning and say, what should I do today? If you look at that, that is 72% of the work year. If someone wanted to buy this business from me, they would be buying a business, not a job. And why would I sell it? Because it's not a job for me either. It's an asset. It's bringing me revenue. I get to continue to do the things I want to do. And yes, some days I get involved on Mondays and Fridays, but rarely. But I get to choose what to do, and I get to continue to contribute to the world around me. I can't ever see selling this business. It makes no sense. But we sell businesses that aren't working for us. So build a business that you could sell, that everybody wants to buy, and that'll be the business you say, why would I sell this? I'm having too much fun.
Interesting. I've never thought about that. We sell businesses that aren't working. It's true.
Yeah.
We've hit a limit of something around us, and we know somebody else could take what we've gotten and take it further. And
Yeah,
we'll see that.
it might be working financially. It might be making a bucket load of money, but I'm freaking miserable, so it's not working that way. Or a myriad of other ways. But we sell businesses because we cannot figure out how to get them to serve us. Right. It's an albatross. I got to get pulled away from me.
Here's a question from Donna, #VBB Radio. I want to hear more about this decision-making and company culture piece. How do we actually make the shift from so-called company culture to a genuine one?
Yeah, great question. The first thing is the belief system of the leaders. Do you believe people are smart and motivated or stupid and lazy? And there's a lot of garbage in there. You might actually say, oh, no, I believe people are smart and motivated. But then let me look at the way you treat them. Let me look at how many decisions you'll actually distribute and all of that good stuff. So there's some head trash to begin with. And then the second thing is to reset the entire structure. You have to blow up the hierarchy. The factory system is dead. And there's thousands of companies racing to what we call the participation age. Participation and sharing are the two hallmarks of the participation age. I want to participate in building a great company. I want to share in the rewards. How do we get people there? First of all, it's the beliefs of the leaders. And then secondly, we do this. We call a company meeting and we make this statement with the 3 of us or the 30 of us or the 3,000 of us. Hi, I'm the CEO. I'm firing myself. I am no longer the CEO. No one in this company, anyone who has a power title is now fired, and we are rehiring ourselves with functional titles. I will now be the Chief Transformation Officer, or in the case of W.L. Gore, who makes Gore-Tex, she calls herself the Chief Troublemaker. My job, and here's the point. You no longer work for a human boss. We all work for, and the person points to the mission statement on the wall, we all work for that. I serve at the pleasure of the mission statement. You serve at the pleasure of the mission statement. What is the mission statement? It is the result we intend to get for our client. What result do we want to get for our client? That is our boss. And if you ever see me doing anything that is contradictory to serving that boss, I ask you to call me on it. And if you ever do anything, I want your permission to call you on it as well. So we start with moving from a department and boss-centered world to a mission-centered world. It flattens things immediately. Now we're all in the same plane. And then we create DDM teams where people take over things that managers used to do. It's a long, and by the way, we don't take anything away to begin with. We start replacing by adding, not subtracting. But here's the simple process. I'll give away the very simple, we give everything away. We call it two-step decision making. How do you make a decision without managers? Really simple. But by the way, leaders are incredibly important. Managers need to go away. Managers are people who treat people like children, and leaders are people who give adults vision. So we need lots of leaders, but we don't need managers. So how do we work in a world without managers? Two-step decision making. I have a team of people, and we ask 2 questions. There's 2 steps. Question number 1, who will have to carry out this decision? They should make it. So who has to actually make the copies? They should buy the copier, not somebody in an office who will never push go. It makes no sense. But that by itself would be chaos and anarchy. Question number 2 brings everything back, solves all the communications issues, gets everybody involved who needs to be involved. Question number 1 is who has to carry out this decision? Question number 2, who will be affected by this decision? They may not have to carry it out, but they'll be affected. Oh, all right, well, that changes everything because you got the owner or the person in accounting or the person with the budget or the team with the budget. So you got to check with the budget. You got to check with technology to see if you're buying something that fits with our technology. You got to check with your customers to see if you're buying something that does two-sided and collated. And I mean, there's all kinds of constituencies out there who are involved in a copier. And Slack and Workplace, other things like that are tremendous vehicles for two-step decision-making. The 3 of us get together and say, we agree we need a copier. The second question is, well, who will be affected by this? Let's throw it out on a Slack channel, and let's invite anybody who wants to participate in building this decision to work with us. And you've got safe decision-making. Is it perfect? No. We're not shooting for perfect. We're shooting for better. Would 3 people who are going to use the copier with all the other input on budget and everything else, would they make a better decision than some isolated manager? Absolutely. Will they make perfect decisions? No. W.L. Gore used this to actually build factories. Bill Gore said, yeah, we just had, we just give 20 or 30 people recognize the factory's too big, and so they go out and they build another one. They make all the decisions, all that, and we don't get involved from headquarters because we believe they're smart and motivated.
What makes it bold, Chuck, to recognize and buy into and start sharing the decision-making process to get more, to achieve more?
So what makes it what?
What makes it bold?
Yeah, good question. Well, so yeah, it's a good question. There's so many things, but first of all, you have to see the vision for rehumanizing the workplace. It's not an altruistic thing. It really is a capitalistic thing. This is based on pure, unadulterated capitalism. We have to understand that in the pyramid scheme, only the guys at the top are capitalists, and the rest of us are being used, which is why we think we hate capitalism. We actually hate industrialism. That's a whole different thing. But what we need to do is turn everybody into a capitalist. And so what makes a bold there would be turning people. How do we turn everybody into a capitalist? There are 12 tools of the participation age that dismantle hierarchies. You add the 12 tools, and as you add the 12 tools, the hierarchy simply begins to disappear because people say, why do I need it? And one of them is this, Jess, a tectonic shift from the factory system pyramid scheme is from bonuses, from time-based bonusing to results-based incentives. I become a capitalist. We have an admin who should be paid $18 an hour. We pay her $11. And we give her a piece of everything done well, good around her. We have surveys with our clients internally. She makes regularly $19, $20, $21 an hour. She makes more than anybody else would on a static salary. Everybody here is a capitalist. So that's one bold move you can do to set this up. But the first one is really just to allow and require decisions to be made locally.
You're going to find all the program notes at voiceofboldbusiness.com/P221. That's voiceofboldbusiness.com/P for program 221. You may also search the site for growth and achievement. Keep this conversation going. We've been talking throughout the show. There are a lot of resources we're going to put into the show notes. Use hashtag VBB Radio. Reach out to Chuck. Reach out to myself. Reach out to each other. Get your own achievement. Get there faster. Get there with time and while making money, to use some of Chuck's words today, by focusing on your growth and achievement.
The Voice of Bold Business Radio gives you insights about how to achieve your company's growth strategy. When you aren't seeing the growth results you want, it's time to get an outside perspective. To discuss your specific situation around growth strategy, work with us. Visit voiceofboldbusiness.com and click Find Out More. Special thanks to the Scott Treatment for technical production. Thank you for joining us.